If you're watching this, you may be deciding to go through the marriage immigration process while you have an asylum case pending in the United States. I'm immigration lawyer John Kasravi, and I've helped a lot of couples be able to go through the adjustment of status process, the green card in the United States, when they had a an asylum case pending. But there are 8 important notes I want you to listen to know before you start this process, because the fact that you have this additional case, which is very serious, asylum pending, you got to think about things a little bit differently in this situation. Again, I'm immigration lawyer John Kasravi, founder of the JQK Immigration Law Firm. If you want to contact us to schedule a consultation, please go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. Again, that's jqqlaw.com/contact. Let's get it started. So it's very important to remember that the information here is not intended as individual legal guidance because each case is different. But these are, the important things I want you to be aware of. Number one, make sure your address is always updated with USCIS. Frequently, when we have clients who have asylum cases pending, they've moved across the country, but they never updated the asylum office and USCIS that they've moved addresses. That's very problematic because they may schedule an interview for you to come in person and you may have missed the notice to appear. And if that happens, your case will be denied and your case would be sent to immigration court for removal or deportation. And if that's happened and you missed the court hearing date, you get what's called an in absentia order of removal, which means if they get you, they could just kick you out. And it's very difficult to reopen the case and to be able to get a green card. So that leads to the second thing. We need to have a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request for copies of your entire file. The asylum case from the Immigration Department, which is USCIS, but also from the court system, and maybe from the Department of State to see how you got your visa in the first place, to try to look everywhere to see if there's any misrepresentation where the government may be considered lying in your application because you didn't give proper information to move it forward. And the most likely the problem that usually comes up in these cases is people don't hire an asylum attorney to do their asylum case. A friend of theirs who speaks the same language sent it to some notary or something like that, accountant or something, and they filled out an asylum case just to get a work permit really fast sometimes, even though they had valid asylum claims. They did this system where they didn't really answer the questions well. And when we get the answers back, we see it's full of errors on there. And that could be construed as misrepresentation or fraud. So if the case is still pending, they need to be corrected so it shows that you corrected the errors before the government adjudicates the case. So this aspect of getting a Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA, known as FOIA, is really important, and it takes a while to get these results. So the sooner you start, the better, from USCIS, from UIR, the immigration court system, but also maybe Department of State at the border, all alike, to make sure we have all the information needed, and so we don't have any inconsistencies that can be considered lying. So those are the first two, which are really important. I got to reiterate it. You got to make sure your address is updated so you get notices, and make sure that your information is correct. This is to clean up your history so you don't have problems popping up. A lot of times when you hear in the news that people went to their green card interview and they're deported, is because they had an immigration court hearing they're not made aware of because they didn't get the notice, and so then they go there, especially when you file on your own, and then the government comes and says, oh, you have a removal order, you've been deported because you didn't show up to your court hearing. They don't know it. Well, that could have been solved by changing your address to get notices and to do the Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA request, to get that information and try to fix it up, or just be aware of things and how they stand. Number 3 is when you're doing a marriage case inside the United States, inevitably, one of the requirements for adjustment of status is that you have entered the United States lawfully. And so if you did enter lawfully, snuck in, that's going to prevent you from being able to adjust status based on the marriage case by itself, adjust status to the green card case in the United States. So it's very important to know that if you didn't have that lawful entry, you have to think about potential other options that exist, exceptions that may be there. We're not going to go into it right now, but the simple basic marriage kind of case will most likely be shut down for a basic I-130 adjustment. Fourth is that it's really important because if you're filing for an asylum case, inevitably, even if you entered on like a tourist visa or a work visa, if those statuses of those lawful visas end, your period of unauthorized stay, unlawful presence, not authorized stay. So what happens is you don't have status anymore. Let's put it that way. And if you don't have status anymore and you want to file for a green card based on marriage and you're married to a U.S. citizen, that overstay period is forgiven. However, if you're married to a green card holder, it's not forgiven. So the status of the U.S. citizen spouse becomes very important. Sometimes you might need to wait for the green card holding spouse to become a citizen before they file for your green card. Because again, when you marry a U.S. citizen, they forgive periods of being out of status. Let's put it that way, because these terms I'm using are very legal, and I got to make sure I use them properly. But if you're married to a green card holder, that's going to be problematic if you're able to adjust status in the United States, because spouses of green card holders don't have that period of overstay forgiven. Number 5 is, unfortunately, the issue. I'm recording this in July 2025, is that the administration is going after and picking up people that have asylum pending. Historically, if you have an asylum pending case or a marriage green card case pending, even if you are out of status at the time, means you overstayed, they usually will defer and not come after you because it's not worth the time and hassle, because they want to see Is your asylum case going to get approved or not? Then we'll decide what to do with you. Or is your marriage green card case going to be approved? A lot of times you're going to get approved, so it's a waste of resources. If I can pick you up, detain you, send you to court, all that kind of stuff, inevitably to be approved anyways. But under this administration, we're hearing more and more people are being picked up, especially if they have asylum pending. If they get pulled over by the police for the most benign reasons. Your headlights were off or something like that, especially in some states more than others. And they can detain you and hold on to you for periods of time and maybe even send you to immigration court. So it's a really nasty situation we're seeing. But with the funding that ICE has, this is going to be more and more of a problem with people with cases pending who've overstayed, who historically will get approved, having the issue of being detained. So be very careful of that. There's not much you could do to a certain extent other than stay in your house, I guess, and definitely don't do any criminal stuff or run into problems. But that's a major problem that we're seeing happen, and it's not too much right now, but there's a good chance that it's going to happen more and more in the future. The next thing I want to mention is that if you have an asylum case pending and you file for a green card case in the United States, adjustment of status, these are affirmative cases. This is when you file with USCIS, the asylum office, not asylum in court. What's really important is that you keep your asylum case open. We hear a lot of times people say, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to close my asylum case, so write a letter to the asylum office to shut it down because I'm going to get the marriage green card. That's a terrible idea because once you shut down the case with the asylum office, if you don't have any backup status or something like that, even if you do, say you're a student visa holder, you're still student visa holders, many times the asylum office will close your case and send you to removal for immigration court to deal with it there. And that's the last thing you want to do. So definitely you don't want to do that. What we try to do is to have and this goes into our next question is keep the case open, number 7, until you reach the point of you have the green card in your hand. So you don't want to close the asylum case until 100% you have the green card if possible. Sometimes you might have an asylum interview scheduled while the green card case is pending. In this case, sometimes you try to ask them if they could reschedule the asylum case because in an interview because you can't come and because you have an adjustment of status case, maybe have an interview for adjustment of status happening, and they may or may not do that, but try to push it back so you get the green card. And along with that, I've never had this situation happen to myself, but I've had colleagues report that at the adjustment of status interview, the green card interview with USCIS based on marriage, the officer said, I can't approve your case because you have an open asylum case pending. Please close your asylum case, then I can approve it. I haven't found anything in the law that says that's the case. And on the other hand, every year I have a couple clients like this who adjust status with their asylum case open. And so I've never seen that be a problem, but that may happen. And you preferably have a lawyer that knows what they're doing, can talk with them and dissuade them from this or talk to a supervisor, because I haven't read any requirements myself that say this is needed. Who knows how things are going to change with the Trump administration. That's something important to be mindful of. And along with that, once your green card is approved, after you get the green card in hand, that's when we notify the asylum office and say, hey, please close my case. I have a green card. Here's a copy of it. I don't need the asylum case anymore because it's null, it's void right now. Unless your marriage has problems or who knows what's happened, you want to also get asylum approved. I've never had the situation. Usually we close it up and it's never been an issue. But there's always exceptions here and there that you may want to do it. Most of the time, you don't need to keep it open anymore. It's just a necessary burden for you to keep over your head. And the final situation I want to talk about is if you are in immigration court, you might have an asylum court pending in immigration court, because there's affirmative asylum, meaning with the USCIS immigration department, and then there's a defensive asylum when they're trying to deport you in immigration court, remove you, and you can file for asylum there. If you get married after you have a notice to appear in immigration court, an NTA, a letter that says you have to appear in immigration court, if you get married after that, the standards for how easily they will accept your marriage that's real rise up. So the basic standard is preponderance of them is 51%. If they 51% think you're truthful about your marriage, they're supposed to approve it. Now, what is 51%? It's so subjective, it's whatever the officer thinks it is. But if you have an immigration court case, the standard goes much higher, that you have to prove that this relationship is real. It wasn't a marriage you got into just because you're in deportation now and you want to get out. So a lot of times we have people who are dating for 5, 6, 7 years, and they're like, oh, we're going to get married and have kids even. I've had people who have 3 kids. Obviously, the marriage relationship is real. They just didn't think about getting married. And then once the immigration court happens, then they get married. Well, that's going to create more havoc for them, more paperwork they have to do. Now, if you have 3 kids together, it's easy to prove it's real. It's just you're putting off getting married for whatever reason, if you could explain it. But if you don't have that good evidence, then it becomes a problem. So in these situations, if people are just putting off a marriage because they want to have a big wedding or something like that, or invite their family to come over before they get married, you could get a courthouse marriage. You don't have to have a big wedding for immigration purposes. You need a lawful wedding to be done, and obviously the relationship has to be bona fide, 100% real, and you need to document that. But having it done before the court case starts is much better than after, because the standards go higher. If you'd like to schedule a consultation of us, we do video consultations for cases all across the country. We help people in these kind of scenarios in every state of the country. We've had in Ohio and Florida and New York, all over the place. I'm in Los Angeles myself. My senior associate is in Virginia, but we take care of it. Please go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. Again, that's jqqlaw.com/contact. Thank you so much for listening to us. And if you're interested in learning more about the marriage green card process in general, not particularly towards asylum, but just in general, down our guide, the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide, 50 plus pages of really good information on how the process works. Go to marriageimmigrationlaw.com. The website again is marriageimmigrationlaw.com. Wish you the best. Bye-bye.